everybody. I hope you can see me fairly clearly. Let us know in the comments if you're having any problems with the video from my end. My name is James Reed. I go by the name Captain Monkey in the trees, and I created the Tree Monkey Project back in 2015. And the point of the project was to teach tree climbing around the world to indigenous tribes and other nonprofits to help protect the environment, help protect forests, and help give skills to local people. So part of that process, the humble beginnings of that were that I'm a professional climber and tree worker, and I decided that I also do recreational tree climbing. So I decided to take tree climbing gear around with me whenever I would travel to different countries. And I had a trip that I had taken back in 2012, 2013, where I'd done a volunteer tour in Indonesia. And that volunteer tour was a month-long tour to work with an orangutan rescue center. And the rescue center at Ketapang, Indonesia, is on the island of Borneo. Borneo is the third largest island in the world. It goes Greenland, Madagascar, Borneo. People may have heard it. Sometimes you hear about it in old historic stories about, British explorers going to visit Borneo. Borneo in the past 20 years has become it used to be probably second in biodiversity to the Amazon, second or third in the world as far as the amount of species and animals and plants. And unfortunately, being an island, it was very susceptible to being taken over and, used up for its natural resources. So the way that it ended up being over the last 20, 25 years, 30 years is that unfortunately there's a lot of illegal logging that goes on there, illegal mining, illegal animal, the illegal pet industry, and it was just being robbed of its resources. And unfortunately, the forest has been cut down. 75% or more of the original forest that used to be part of Borneo is no longer there. It's only in the deepest parts, the hardest parts to get to, that there's still any original forest left. So a lot of people probably heard about that since, we've been getting more and more information about, international, how logging and planting of palm oil, is really destroying and disrupting ecology all over the world. And Borneo is one of those places that it's hit the worst. So on the island of the reason I went to work with the orangutans is that the orangutans are the only primate that still lives up in the forest, in the canopy, primarily most of its life. So 75, 85% of its life, it spends up in the canopy. All the other primates, the great apes, let's say, out of the great apes, so gorillas and chimpanzees spend, most of their time or half of their time down on the ground. So when you're cutting the forest down for the orangutans, they're literally losing their homes. There's no place for them to go. Their whole body is built to be hanging from trees. Their food intake, everything that they need is up in the canopy. Without the canopy, that's it. And it's a sad situation. Orangutans only live on 2 islands in the world. A lot of people don't know that. They live on the island of Borneo and the island next to it in Sumatra. And both of those islands are being cut down at an incredibly fast rate. And so a lot of people ask me, well, wasn't it just beautiful working with the orangutans? And it's a bittersweet feeling. to go there and, to see the orangutans is incredible and amazing. But to be doing the work because that they're losing their home, because they're losing their ability to roam in the forest, is hard to take. The problem, one of the big problem right now is that they are becoming extinct, and their death rate right now is around 17%, and their birth rate is about 4%. So they are just outdying themselves. They can't reproduce fast enough in order to be able to maintain their population. And unless there's a dramatic change that happens, they will basically be an extinct species in the next 40 years. So yeah, it's a different experience to go and do work with a species so widely known, and and work directly with them and realize that the outlook is pretty much extinction. There's there aren't any real good solutions at this point, and even the idea of not planting any more palm oil isn't really a solution, because they'll just use some other type of they'll grow something else and take down the forest. So even now it's really confusing, because there are organizations that have been fighting to protect the animals and the orangutans in the forest, and saying that palm oil is bad, don't use palm oil. At the same time, they're having to change their stance, because the reality is that palms are actual are trees that are creating a green cover, and that green cover is what's keeping the environment, the weather, from tilting too quickly into a desert-like area. So what happens in the jungle forest is that the trees are part of the maintaining of the weather system. So accumulating moisture, allowing for rain, allowing for clouds, and once you cut that out, eventually what happens is these areas become dry as the Sahara Desert. So eventually their progress is towards arid and lack of rain. So being able to maintain some type of green cover over the land will still help push off the complete devastation of the climate system in that area.
James, may I pause you for just a moment? You've just said a lot of information there, and I kind of want to rephrase it. So what you're saying, if I heard it correctly, was as much as we don't like palm oil plantations because they are devastating the natural forest, they are still better once the place has been cleared than dry area, because of the devastation of climate change of a dry, foliage-less area. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And I also just want to say that if anybody else has questions, just like I have, we are utilizing the question and answer portion during today's seminar. So if you go to the bottom middle section of your Zoom window, there is a Q&A icon. Go ahead and click on that and type your question in, and it will be transmitted to James. Thank you, James. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's a really, like I said, it's a bittersweet experience to be working there. One of the things that also a lot of people don't recognize is that in the rescue world down there, they consider the orangutans an umbrella species. So, and what they mean by that is that orangutans are so widely known around the world that they can get a lot of funding and they can get a lot of help in order to protect the orangutans. The problem is that the rest of the species of animals that are endemic to Borneo, to Sumatra, are highly unknown around the world, and they don't get the funding. They don't get the protection that they need in order to keep them surviving. So there are all sorts of other animals called bearcat, the pangolin, the what was the tickling is torture was on a campaign on Facebook. Sorry, being up in a tree and actually doing an interview is actually kind of a strange thing. There are other nocturnal animals and tree, tree living animals.
I believe it was a slow loris, Judah is telling us.
Slow loris. Thank you. Yeah. Are all animals that are on the endangered species list.
James, there is a question. If you don't, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Aren't they planting more and more palm plantations now? So should we continue to try and at least minimize palm oil consumption, or no? What do we do?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I mean, obviously, I don't have the answers for that. Really, we want to stop. Yeah, we want to stop cutting the forest is basically the only answer. But realistically, people just aren't going to stop using oil. They're not going to stop using palm oil. They're not going to stop. The machinery is so huge and worldwide. And I unfortunately have not heard of any good answers. But it's going to have to be dramatic. Like I said, it's just a matter of they have to stop cutting the forest. There isn't that much left anyway at this point. So planting new, taking out more forest and planting whatever, whether it's palm oil or whether it's sugarcane, or they're just production crops. And we have to, as a human species, we have to change our lifestyle, in order to keep this from happening. Bringing it right back down to COVID. COVID, they feel is started by the what do they call them? The wet
markets.
Wet markets in China. And in those wet markets in China, you have all these different species of animals that are all put in cages and hanging out on top of each other and pooping on top of each other, and and getting sick and creating super unhealthy conditions where these diseases can suddenly appear and jump species. And orangutan, unfortunately, there is a market for orangutan meat. So even with the stopping of deforestation, there's still hunting and eating of these exotic meats, and these exotic animals. So it all ties together. The orangutans are at the effect of everything. They're at the effect of climate change. They're at the effect of, illegal hunting. They're at the effect of chemicals and mining and they're really at the crux of all these different problems that we have, that humans have unfortunately created without giving a lot of forethought. So yeah, it's a tricky question to answer, other than having extreme changes happen very quickly. Are there any other questions?
Not at this time.
Ones to answer? Maybe I'll try and come up with a subject that's, just to give you a little background on orangutans. Orangutans, like I said, orangutans only live in Sumatra, on the islands of Sumatra and Borneo. And both of those islands are Sumatra is fully Indonesian. The island of Borneo is part Indonesia and part Malaysia. So the northern one quarter is Malaysia, the southern three quarters is Indonesia. And those are the only two islands that the orangutans are endemic to. And then each of those orangutan species, they're actually different types of orangutan. So the orangutans on the island of Borneo are different enough variation genetically from the ones on Sumatra that they can't mix the two. It would be like breeding horses with mules or with donkeys, and you get a mule. So then the mule is sterile and can't reproduce. So that's what would happen if they tried to mix those two different species. And an orangutan's average lifespan is approximately 50 to 60 years. Females start breeding around 20 years, 20 to 24 years. And a female will only have one baby at a time. They don't throw twins, they don't throw triplets. And each one of those babies will stay with the mother for at least 7 years, 7 to 8 years approximately. So conceivably, a mom under ideal conditions would be able to have about 4 babies in her lifetime. And that's what the difficulty is in being able to maintain any type of population. Under ideal conditions, to be able to have four babies, and have them survive and continue growing is extremely tough right now. The males are interesting. An average orangutan, I'm not sure whether it's male or female, but an average orangutan is approximately 7 times stronger than a human being. And you figure they have to be, because they're going to be hanging from trees, all day long. And they don't think twice about just having, just being swinging from their arm. And they could be 150, 200, 250 pounds and spend, 20 minutes just hanging from one arm. The males are interesting in that there are beta males, and then there's the alpha male, and the alpha male is a hormonal change that takes over in the beta male's body. So when there's a particular call that the orangutans do, which is called the long call, and the alpha male is the one that gives the long call out. And they said they found that the long call genetically causes a genetic response in all the other beta males around his area, and keeps their hormones from changing and keeps them in a beta state. And then when the alpha male, reaches a certain, average about 5 to 6 years of reproducing, he starts losing his strength. And when they notice a change in his long call, when his long call isn't as powerful anymore, all of a sudden it creates a response in the bodies of all these, a hormonal response in the bodies of all the male betas. And they start challenging the alpha male, and the one that beats the alpha male suddenly will go through a major hormonal change. And so you can tell the difference between a regular male and an alpha male is because you've seen pictures of orangutans with these huge cheek pouches and a huge throat pouch. That's a hormonal change that happens to them, a physical change, physical manifestation of them becoming an alpha male. And then they will be the new alpha male for about 5 to 6 years. And it's just a raging maniac trying to, they don't have mates. They just try and, impregnate as many females as they can during that time period. And the difficulty in that is that orangutans are not a family-oriented great ape. They are singular, so they tend to roam alone in the forest. And an orangutan's territory is average about 250 to 500 acres in the forest. So that's for the female and their child. And this orangutan has to go climbing through the forest canopy, to get to females, over a long distance and just keep going, for 5 to 6 years. It's actually been stated that that after basically what happens is that they end up burning out. Um, their body just physically can't take that kind of energy anymore, and they just burn out. And then after they've gotten knocked out of their position, and there's a new alpha male, their cheek pouches will recede, their throat pouch will recede, and then they'll just go into like a 5-year depression, which is kind of sad. But yeah, just a fascinating process. So the sheer distance that they have as far as territory, again, falls back into why we need to keep the forest. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Without the forest, there is no home for them, and they need 250 to 500 acres per orangutan, and you've got 10,000 orangutans. Where do you put them all? And that's one of the experience, the issue that they're having with all these rescue centers. That even if we go to re-release them back, they rehabilitate orangutans and re-release them back into the forest, they're running out of forest to re-release them. And that forest is filled with, orangutans that they're either being released or already wild orangutans in it. So it's just, it's just a lot of compression. I had originally gone to this rescue center. I'd only gone there as a volunteer, so I wasn't doing any. I was just assisting the staff members there, which is a really cool project, and I recommend it to everybody and anybody. It's just an amazing experience to work in the presence. I have to say this, one of the biggest questions is, what was it like to work with the orangutans? I don't know. If you were working at a proper orangutan rescue center, you will not be in contact with the orangutans. You won't be in direct contact with the orangutans. The orangutans have 97% the same genetics that we do, so they can catch basically everything that we can catch. So common cold, flu, they've gotten, they've been known to catch HIV, tuberculosis, any of the diseases that we can get at, they can get. And so one of the issues is that they don't, in a proper rescue center, they will not put you close to an orangutan unless you're a vet, or you have experience directly working with animals in that situation. But you'll be in the presence of them. They have them, in the holding cells, the cages, and out in forest, mock forests, in order to be able to handle them and take care of them, and hopefully in many cases re-release them back in the forest.
James, we do have one question here. Do the beta males ever or sometimes reproduce while a beta, or only the alphas reproduce?
My understanding is that only the alphas reproduce. Basically, they just don't have the, I don't know. I can't say for sure, but that's my understanding, is that only the alphas reproduce, which would fit within the reason why there's still, why there's so little orangutans. I would think, considering the stress that's happening to orangutans in general, if that were a genetic ability, or if that was something that they were able to do, and also from my experience, so even though orangutans are singular, they put them all together in these rescue centers. They're not separated except for the alpha male. The alpha male is the only one separated. So they'll put females and males in the same cage together. So my thinking is that that just doesn't happen unless there's a hormonal change.
So it's also my I'm sorry, go ahead. My apologies.
No, I was just going to say that what I was trying to say is that they're not aggressive to each other, even if they're put together. They're actually really they really do well in group situations. It's just their existence in the world, the amount of food that they need, and you know, for whatever reason, they need a large area in order to be able to survive. And so one of the things that also they need a large space for is they build nests in the trees. They really build nests to sleep in. So, but the problem is that they do that every single day. So they build a nest in the midday in order to sleep during the sun when, you know, when the sun's hot. They also build a nest to sleep in at night. And they'll just, you know, find a couple of, you know, a good spot and start ripping off branches and you know, tearing up small saplings and stuff, build their nest, and then they'll move on the next day. And so with that much destruction, they could actually, if they were in a group situation or a family situation, imagine having, you know, 7, 8, 10, 20 orangutans in one small area. They'll strip a forest canopy in a heartbeat. And they've actually done that in the rescue settings, where they tried to build small forest areas, you know, enclosed small forest areas. And within about, you know, within a few months to a year, that enclosed forest was completely dead because they had stripped all the branches off.
So actually orangutans are dependent to be able to climb in a high canopy. Yeah? There is the food, there is the safety, and so if they grow up with us and they always want to be on the ground, they don't find the food and they don't find the safety. The problem when we bring up orangutan orphans with human surrogate mothers is that humans are earthbound, and so many times we see situations like here. The orangutans are learning the right thing, eating the forest food, but they are on the ground, whereas that whole situation should be up in a tree.
Okay, so we use this one.
My name is James Reed, and I also go by Captain Monkey. Currently, I'm here in East Kalimantan, just outside of Balikpapan, Indonesia, which is on the island of Borneo. And I'm at the Yayasan Jejak Pulong Orangutan Rehabilitation Center. And I'm here representing the Tree Monkey Project, and we're here to teach the staff how to climb trees. And we'll use that in order to help rehabilitate the orangutans. Humans are really, really bad at climbing. It's amazing to see how graceful and how comfortable the orangutans are, and how long it takes for us just to even get up into the tree.
Making the tree climbing actually was a great idea because the caretakers really like it. And up here in the tree behind me, you can see Aulia and Yanni, who have just started to learn and finished the beginner's course, 5 days, and already they can climb. And we also have team members who already have finished the advanced course, so they can actually move around in the canopy from one rope to another. So it's great, and they like it.
The challenge is safety, and it's actually even more challenging here because you're dealing with unpredictable weather, heat, constant rainstorms, but you're also dealing with vast amount of species of plants, animals, and trees that we don't normally get where I am from up in North America. So the safety challenge is exponential whenever you're climbing in the jungle.
The ability to climb for the orangutans is essential because that's just part of their world. Yeah, the orangutans are tree dwellers. Even if the forest is regrowing, then they can spend quite some time on the ground because there is a lot of food. But in the primary forest, it's like a Gothical cathedral, and there is no light on the ground. So all the food is up there, the safety is up there, and the other partners, the orangutans, are also up there. And they have to experiment everything by themselves. There is not a mother who shows them how to go from one place to another. All this canopy is like a three-dimensional net. Yeah, everything is linked with each other, but not with tight knots, but with sliding things. So if you put your weight there, you may go, yeah? And if you are two, that interacts, yeah? So if they don't learn that while they are young, they will always be clumsy climbers, and then they fall out of the trees when they, after the release, yeah? Or even they can do it on their own, but they cannot do it in a social situation.
Cool. So that was us working at Jejak Pulong, like I said in the video. That is in eastern Borneo.
We have a couple of questions in the audience. Do you mind if I just allow them to talk?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
My question, as I was getting up my tree, is what can we do as regular, citizens of the world do to support these, these endeavors and this great project? What is one thing we can do?
Thank you.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not one that it's very hard for me to do this, but I have to because we're always looking for donations, obviously, for our project, the Tree Monkey Project, but we're also looking for more projects around the world as well. So if you know of anything, please let us know or put us in contact of anybody that you might be, looking for. The Orangutan Project is just one of the projects that we've worked on. So we're always looking for donations. If you want to work specifically or help specifically with the orangutans, I would suggest going on one of these volunteer tours if you can do it, if it's possible. You're paying for the tour, but and I can direct you to the group that I went with. They have been able to maintain an integrity where the money that you put towards the tour actually goes orangutan, going into a lot of bureaucracy, and the experience that you'll get out of it is just, like I said, it's a life-changing experience. There are also, if orangutans aren't your species of choice, or obviously other species, animals, and projects that you can get into through volunteer touring, and that is an incredible way. And then just daily habits, of course, trying to lower your intake of any type of product that is, how can we say not to destroy the forest? It's a hard thing, but we have to make sacrifices, and in order for us to be able to change the world. So lessening the amount of food that you eat that has palm oil in it, keeping those type of programs, helping local programs, eat local, and that's kind of the advice that weaves through all of it. Do you have another question? Is that?
Thank you. We'll hold for just a moment. I do
Who else
not
do we
see
have?
another question at this time. Okay.
Thanks for asking, by the way, and thanks for supporting it.
So your website is treemonkeyproject.org. I will put that in the chat for all the attendees. We do have approximately 10-15 more minutes. If there's any more questions, please do put it in the Q&A box at the bottom center of your Zoom dialog box. Thank you.
So, so a little bit more about the rescue centers. When I first got there, I went through an organization that's a tour. It's essentially a tour company that sells tour nonprofits. It's called the Great Projects, and the Great Projects are a for-profit. They're just making money off selling these tours, but they will hook you up with the volunteer tours. And the group that I ended up working for was the International Animal Rescue. They are the actual nonprofit that is running the rescue center that I went to. Excuse me. And they had a month-long tour that I worked with in Borneo. We went to a small town that used to be it used to be just a fishing village, and then it exploded because of the palm oil industry and the illegal mining, illegal logging. And even from the first time that I went there until now, they've gone from, not having any type of, they had one fast food restaurant they called KFC, but they called it Ketapang Fried Chicken. Now they've actually got an actual Kentucky Fried Chicken there, and they've got a full-fledged mall. So it's incredible, the amount of buildup that's done, and how short of a time it can take before, when these areas can grow. So when I was there, the man who was in charge of it had seen me taking some of the staff up in the trees just for fun, because I brought my tree climbing gear. And he said, we don't have anybody to climb trees, and we work with an animal that lives primarily up in the trees. When can you come back and train us? And that was one of the moments that had led me to create the Tree Monkey Project, realizing that in the outside, we maintained contact, and I wasn't sure how it was going to work, but then I decided to put together the nonprofit, and I ended up talking to him, and we ended up agreeing on a time to come back. And in between that time, he ended up going to a conference with other nonprofits, rescuing orangutans, rescuing sun bears, and he volunteered us, without me knowing it, to go and teach them as well. So the next time I talked to him afterward, he said, you're not just going to be training us, you're going to be training 8 other nonprofits. And that led into our trip in 2016. It was March 2016, where we traveled to 5 different locations all over Borneo, from 2 locations in Malaysia, 3 locations in Indonesia and southern Borneo. And taught 8 nonprofits that were training, rescuing orangutans and sun bears. So sun bear is another one of those species, umbrella species. And it was just an amazing experience. And I would love to tell you of any crazy thing that happened during that trip, which you would expect, but nothing happened. It went off without a hitch, and I have no really good stories to tell about, except that it was successful.
James, there is a question, and maybe another story you can tell us. It's from John Greer, and it says you had to cancel a recent trip to Romania. Is that going to be rescheduled? And would you tell us a little bit about ongoing forest restoration efforts in Romania?
Okay, it's kind of off topic, but yeah, just to sidestep here. We had a trip that I was involved in a trip to go and is to help protect forests, yeah, from illegal logging and also illegal poaching. So we help put up these alarm systems, essentially with an alarm system in the forest. And what a lot of people don't realize is that Romania is losing forests, vast amount of heritage forest and old growth forest, and that is unique because it's hardwood forest. It's not. We're not talking about in the jungles. So I had set up a tree climbing tour to go and explore this forest this past June, and of course the shelter in place happened. We had to cancel our tours, and now we're basically not allowed to fly out of the country anymore for who knows how long, unfortunately. We did tentatively reschedule that for next year. So yeah, we did put it on. I think it's back on in June, maybe the beginning of June, but I believe I have that on the website. So if you want more information about that, just go to our website and you can get the information on what the tour is about. And if you have more questions, just email us.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, are you guys having, do you still have good connection here?
Your audio is starting to go in and out a little bit, and you only have a few minutes left. So why don't you give us a few last good remaining thoughts? There's some great information in the chat for our attendees online about environmental NGOs from Grace. Go ahead and look at it. And let me look, there's no remaining questions. And I just would like to confirm to everyone to go to treemonkeyproject.org to get more information about James's organization, how to donate to his organization that provides both travel funds and donation equipment to people who can't afford it, as well as to find information about next year's upcoming Romania tour. I see no other questions.
And also, just one more thing. We
talk slow, James. Your audio's going out.
We actually had the BBC. You take my video off.
Go ahead.
So we do the BBC. Actually, we're doing a series on primates called The Primates. And they gave us a little spot on the third of their series. It just came out on the BBC this past spring. We're hoping it comes out on PBS, but we do have a link to it on YouTube that we can also share. So if you want to see a little bit more of that project that we were doing with Jacques Poulon, the BBC has that, and I also recommend taking a look at the series itself. We got to see. I was able to capture the last part of that series, and I'm looking forward to watching the next two. So.
All righty.
All right.
I'm showing the BBC clip in our last minutes.
So in this forest school program, we have a total at the moment of 8 orangutans. As long as we have many caretakers on the ground, it's almost impossible to get the orangutans all up in the trees.
right. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Webinar for you, and talk to you more. If you want more information, just contact us through. Looking forward, and happy climbing to everybody. Thanks.